Well, doesn't this just dogpile my sandy wallflower? It looks like No Man's Sky got a content update, and after months of outright silence and all signs pointing towards them abandoning the game outright, I'd say that calls for some celebration. Oh. Okay, sorry, there was supposed to be, like, a thing. In the No Man's Sky Foundation update, as it's called, the game has been split into 3 different modes: Classic, Survival, and Creative. Classic mode is the basic pre-patch No Man's Sky. If you want to know my thoughts about that, maybe check out my review of the base game. And if you're a fucking huge guy and don't have time to watch a 12-minute video, I'll give you a quick summary. It's not very good. There, you're all caught up. Now on to meticulously dissecting and critiquing the new content as well as offering a new evaluation of the game as a whole. If you don't have time for all of that, it's not very good. Now, the bulk of this review is going to be me talking about the new survival mode, but I do want to touch on creative mode for a second because I can't help but feel somewhat confused by its existence. Yes, you've added base building, and we're all very proud of you, but at the moment I wouldn't say it's fleshed out enough to warrant having an entire mode built around it. The pieces are all pretty restrictive in their uses, and the object limit is lower than my self-esteem, so it's not like this mode needs to exist for you to take full advantage of the base building or something. If I decided to farm some iron for a couple of hours, I could have easily gotten to the object limit in survival, so why give us a sandbox with only a pint of sand in it? Fuck, you still can't even build a base wherever you want. Even in creative, you have to use a predetermined habitable base as your foundation, meaning that your base has to have at least one cylindrical piece no matter what. Oh hell yeah, man, creative freedom to do whatever you want, as long as what you want is this one very specific thing in this exact spot. On the bright side though, this does address one of my initial problems with the game, in that when you inevitably do get bored, you finally have the option to build a giant dick. So hey, at least they're addressing all of the core criticisms I made in that video. Now with that out of the way, let's move on to survival mode, a mode that is fine in concept, but whose execution deserves execution, so points for consistency, I guess. Actually, this mode sort of blew me away in the way that it turned the base game on its head by being exactly the same, only everything is really hard now. And if I can, and I can because this is my video, I'd like to take a moment to explain a really important distinction about difficulty that I feel is sort of lost on a lot of people. You see, Dark Souls, Super Meat Boy, The Binding of Isaac, Mega Man, and Fury are all games that I, among others, have praised for their difficulty. Thing is though, none of these games are good because they're hard. They're good because they're challenging. And while that may sound like a bullshit semantic statement, it's actually a really important distinction to make. When you give the player a challenge, you're giving them an obstacle to overcome through practice and hard work. When you just make things hard for the sake of being hard, all you're doing is creating a viral marketing campaign for thiazide. Sitting in a cave for 5 minutes waiting for your environmental protection to come back up so you can sprint 50 yards to wait in another cave where you die from exposure because your life support is drained by walking around, which you have to do in order to find the resource needed to refill it, isn't a challenge. It's a time sink, and a fucking annoying one at that. In the time I spent playing survival mode, I managed to get stuck in 3 different endless death loops due to unlucky landings and the fact that the launch thrusters now use 100% of your fuel to take off. Now, you could probably make a case for that being my fault for not stocking up on plutonium for the thrusters every time I wanted to explore a new area, but in my experience, it's nigh impossible to collect much more than 1 tank full of plutonium per landing due to the fact that you can't stray more than a few hundred yards from your ship without risking death by exposure, and there's no way to scan for plutonium before landing, which makes every landing a bizarre coin flip of death. And you know what? This game officially broke me. When I got caught in my 3rd endless death loop and realized that restarting again would put me at a total of 7 hours of my life that I could never get back and had nothing to show for, I gave up and installed a mod to lower the fuel cost of taking off. So if you're on PlayStation, I guess the review ends there. I find survival mode to be unbearable without the help of mods. Maybe that means I'm bad at the game, but quite frankly, I can't imagine caring less. Now, the reason I got stuck in endless death loops in the first place is because every single planet in survival mode would be deemed uninhabitable in the base game for any of a number of reasons. Any planet with a habitable atmosphere is covered in hyper-aggressive sentinels, and any planet without hyper-aggressive sentinels has an atmosphere of ice, fire, radiation, league, heart, etc., etc. One planet that sticks out in my memory had sweltering heat during the day, severe freezing cold at night, and had intermittent storms that would drain your environmental protection faster than you could say, "I'm having a terrible time." After some thought, I decided to name this monstrosity of a planet Eudoxie Bugyenwe, because quite frankly, it was fucking ludicrous. Now, after having a good long long think, I wound up setting up shop on one of the Sentinel planets, and if you've suffered some serious head trauma and decide to play this game too, then I strongly suggest you do the same, as adding 1 or 2 combat upgrades to your mining laser will turn the Sentinels into a minor annoyance, whereas the environmental hazards are something you have to babysit and constantly pour your hard-earned resources into, only to watch them drain time and time again, leaving you with nothing. Think of it like paying medical bills for a terminal illness, or maybe getting a degree in the arts. After claiming a habitable base and doing some Googling, I was prompted to build a construction terminal and hire a builder so that I could unlock the rest of the base parts as well as unlock the remaining terminals for all the other specialists, and I suppose this brings me to the meat of the tofu sandwich that is the No Man's Sky Foundation update, that being the questing system. When you build a base, you have the option to hire specialists who will give you a series of quests and teach you new crafting recipes, almost all of which are specific to base building, but that's just sort of splitting hairs, so I'll give it a pass. You're able to hire up to 4 specialists, a builder, a scientist, a weapons dealer, and a botanist. Now, I say 4 specialists, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they're all actually the same specialist wearing a series of increasingly elaborate costumes, partially because the quests they hand out are all identical fetch quests, but mostly because it's impossible to place 2 of them in the same room. And yes, every single one of the quests that these specialists give you is some variation of here is thing, go find thing, where the only variety comes from how much more annoying thing 17 is to find than thing 4. Granted, I only bothered to do 2 of the weapon specialist quests, but after finishing the quest lines for the other 3, I feel pretty safe in the assumption that his quest line doesn't end with you saving Princess Edna's Rewolfjaw from a cursed monolith guarded by a giant robotic dragon. I could be wrong there, but I'm not, so I'm not going to bother dwelling on it. Which means that the only thing left to do in this update is to buy a freighter, and that should only take 1 or 2 decades of currency farming, so that's easy peasy kill me pleasy. Lucky for me, I discovered a cheeky exploit that let me farm currency extremely quickly by growing a fuckload of Mordite and turning it into lubricant, which I would then sell on the galactic market to turn a massive profit. So my final 5 or 7 or 14 hours of playtime consisted of me quite literally standing around, gormlessly watching plants grow for hours on end, and then teleporting to the nearest space station after filling my starship with lube. Which sounds like an innuendo for some sort of depraved sex act, but is somehow made even sadder by the fact that it isn't one. And what did all of this time spent get me? A fuckload of storage slots and a second, more restrictive base building mechanic. Now, I'm hesitant to use the term disappointed when describing anything in No Man's Sky, as that word implies some level of expectation to begin with, but even when I expected nothing, I couldn't help but feel incredibly disappointed that this is all the freighters amount to. They aren't even convenient to get to. From what I can tell, you can't warp to it like you can with your planet-side base, and they're so indistinguishable from the outside that I actually flew into the wrong one at one point and thought mine had skipped town with all my credits. And that's not even mentioning the fact that the farming process leading up to buying one made me legitimately question my mental state, because after spending a few hours farming Mordite in a stark white room, I started to hear the sound of them sprouting from halfway across the solar system, at which point I couldn't help but think to myself, great, I've finally lost it. Now I can go stare at the sun and write fanfiction, or maybe even continue playing No Man's Sky. You know, the kind of shit a lunatic does. But no, it turns out that the audio was just bugged so that no matter where I was, I couldn't escape the sound of sprouting plants, which I think is another piece of evidence that supports my theory that Hello Games aren't so much malicious as they are inept. And if you're interested in finding more evidence to support that theory, aside from the game's overall quality, of course, all you need to do is mosey on over to the Steam page and look at the featured screenshots, or more specifically, this screenshot that prominently features a hard intersection on the ship's thruster. Now, normally I wouldn't mention this sort of thing, given that I'm a YouTuber and therefore understand as much about the technical side of game development as I do about personal fulfillment, but I feel it's worth bringing this up in particular because a friend of mine was able to write a shader that fixes this issue in under 5 minutes. Granted, he's a technical artist with 9 years of experience, but still, this screenshot is featured on the Steam page and prominently displays a graphical error that could be fixed in less time than you have spent watching this video. That's on the same level as me making one of my old Gary's Mod videos my channel trailer. Okay, maybe it's not that bad, but still, I'm pretty sure the idea is to put your best foot forward, not to frame your own incompetence front and center for everyone to see. Now, contrary to what I'm sure many of you may think, I didn't just decide to review this patch because I wanted to kick Hello Games while they were down. I actually reviewed it, ha ha ha, because I was hoping that it would change my mind about No Man's Sky as a whole. You see, I'm a big believer in redemption. I mean, shit, this is what my thumbnails used to look like. I have to believe in redemption. And if anyone in the gaming industry is in need of some redemption right now, it would absolutely be Hello Games. However, redemption is something that you have to earn, and this cheeky shit Yeah, you haven't earned that yet, guys. Look, I'm just gonna bottom line it for you here. I think that someday this game could be good. Great even. And if you care about it as much as I am choosing to believe you do, I really think that you can make that happen. But for the love of Sean fucking Murray, will you please hire someone to handle your PR? I get that you didn't want to overhype the update after the fallout following the game's release, but your IQ must be represented by a fucking letter if you think that outright silence was a proper solution to that. Fuck it. I'll do it. You don't even have to pay me. Here, I'll write some test tweets as sort of an audition for you. We've heard your complaints and we're working hard to try and turn this into the game we all want it to be. Major content update coming soon. Trying to rein back our hype machine a bit. Information about the update will be available when it's about to go live. Listen, we know you want answers, but we've learned that we shouldn't say anything too specific until we're absolutely certain about the details. Okay, look, the death threats y'all have been sending our way are kind of overkill. Can we just chill a bit? We're all hard at work here. Okay, now you're sending death threats to my dog. That's too fucking far, man. Y'all need to step back and take a fucking chill pill. It's just a game. No, multiplayer will not be in this update. I don't even know if it's possible. I was fucking drunk when I said that. Stop asking me that shit. I don't know if you fuckers even deserve an update at this point. My dog is better spoken than you and he's blind, deaf, and is a dog. Hey, at Commenticate, does it still count as an homage if I just rip off your entire shtick for the end of a video? Asking for a friend, thanks. Holy shit.